The assumption that the best protein comes from corpses is a racist belief. Human is actually defined as white male property owner, and then there's the species boundary and everyone else.
That's a topic for a video.
21st century animal eating requires our complicity in a new colonialism. We know how settler colonialism worked, an erase and replace system that forced indigenous people off the land, replacing them with cattle and white settlers. One of the defining aspects of the colonial legacy is an ongoing white supremacist belief system and an ownership paradigm. When you own the land, you get the title to it. Entitlement and ownership are linked. What we have is a white supremacist, misogynist conceptualizations of the other. They're separate issues? No. We must have a theory that links animality and white supremacy and misogyny. Your hamburger comes with a dose of misogyny. So, the intersection of race, gender, and species is always happening. In obvious ways, by racially marking an animal as non-white. Now, this doesn't happen a lot, where the animals are marked as non-white. So this is unusual, but when it happens, it's often with beavers. This is actually a three-dimensional sign in upstate New York, so that if you're looking at it from the side, her breasts jut out. So meat advertisements are saying something about race as well as gender and species. We have animalized, racialized women and feminized, sexualized, and racialized animals. White supremacists weaponized it, eating meat, eggs, and dairy. Images of milk-drinking white men, of platters groaning with meat, and the baiting of liberal men as so-called soy boys are all part of the neo-Nazi messaging. This is their right, the neo-Nazis say. This is their identity. The new colonization rests on the unstable foundation of white men's insecurities. To say you care about animals is considered a sign of weakness in a world still committed to the gender binary that values stereotyped masculine reason over stereotyped feminine feeling. The perspective represented is about the natures of whiteness and masculinity and the recuperation of white maleness. A human-animal binary functions in racist and misogynistic logic. Anthropocentrism is inevitably racist in its human-centeredness, well, it's man-centeredness, right? So anthropocentrism, our views about animals, is inevitably racist in its man-centeredness. You with me so far? Whiteness informs the definition of human and animal. Through colonial power, the diet of beef-loving English people became normative. The food heritage of pre-conquest peoples, like the land itself, was overrun. It was the colonizers, especially the British, who declared that the virility of meat-eating nations explained their success over the supposed feminine and weak rice-eating countries they defeated. The assumption that the best protein comes from corpses is a racist belief. Tonight, you're being asked to vote on whether you accept this new colonialism or not. Our menu choices don't stay on the plate. And I heard all your laughter. I know some of these must be new ideas, or you think they're fringe or whatever. Our whiteness is part of the problem of meat eating.
Some of the advertisements promoting bacon, promoting beef, promoting milk, some of them are kind of sexist. Some of the advertisements for alcohol are kind of sexist. Some of the advertisements for cigarettes are kind of sexist. Even if all that's true, this discussion has to begin and end with me having the honesty to say that is irrelevant to my decision to refuse to smoke cigarettes. And it's actually irrelevant to the political discussion about what our policy on nicotine and tobacco should be. The facts that people employ to support their own arguments in politics, the facts that people selectively choose to illustrate and prove the validity of their own position, are often completely irrelevant to the matter at hand. They're completely spurious to the decisions we have to make. And something can be irrelevant, something can be spurious, whether it is true or false. Factually, I do not think any of the claims made by Carol J. Adams in that argument are valid. The claims she makes about racism, the claims she makes about the history of colonialism, about the cultures of indigenous people, and how they were all supposedly vegetarian until 5 minutes before the British Empire showed up and conquered them and converted them to eating animals. On a range of issues, her factual claims are, from my perspective, outrageously, laughably false. But even if they were true, they'd have to be dismissed as irrelevant. Let's say we're debating the question of whether or not Turkey should be a member state of the European Union, or whether or not any particular country, whether it be England or Canada, should set up a special free trade agreement with Turkey, embrace the Turks politically, economically, have unlimited amounts of immigration from Turkey. If you tell me that you're opposed to this, and I say, why? Why would anyone be morally or politically opposed to us having warmer ties with Turkey? If your answer is, well, there's this war on the island of Cyprus. Is that the reason? If I press you on it, I say, okay, hypothetically, what if tomorrow Turkey commits to withdrawing all of its troops from Cyprus, reunification of Cyprus, the war is over? If that all suddenly ends tomorrow, if they do that, then will you support the free trade agreement with Turkey? Then will you support Turkey becoming a member? Or are you going to move on to presenting another, perhaps factually valid, but irrelevant reason? Oh, well, Turkey, I don't like the way they oppress the Kurds. They're an ethnic minority, the Kurdish, and they're kind of racist against the Kurds. Okay, what if? What if somehow, magically, we could remove that from the equation? Is that really why you're opposed to this free trade agreement with Turkey? Well, the status of women, kind of sexist. It's kind of a backward, patriarchal society. Oh, okay, really? In this way, we have to disambiguate in politics what our position really is, what it is we're really arguing for, or why. I'm morally opposed to Xi Jinping being the political leader of China. A lot of people are. A lot of people say. But if you talk to someone face to face, you say, okay, so why are you so anti-China? Why are you so hostile to China? Today, they're very likely to say to you that it's because of the mistreatment of the Muslim minority in the Chinese province of Xinjiang. Well, let me ask you, would you actually support Xi Jinping? Would you be pro-China instead of anti-China if overnight they changed their policy on the Muslim minority in Xinjiang? No! You'd find some other pretext, some other excuse, some other reason, even if these things are factual. And very often they're not. The particular facts people employ, people deploy, people cling to, people select and present are often utterly irrelevant. Meat eating is not racist. Meat eating does not support white supremacy. The connection between meat eating and colonialism and masculinity, it's laughable. But if it were true, if each and every step taken in her reasoning were valid, it would still be irrelevant. Some of the advertisements promoting bacon, promoting beef, promoting milk, some of them are kind of sexist. Some of them kind of offend even my feminist sensibilities. But you know what? Some of the advertisements for alcohol are kind of sexist. Some of the advertisements for cigarettes are kind of sexist. If I told you I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, and I'm never going to, And then you asked me why. I said, you know what it is? You know what it is? I'm just so furious that they have these photographs of sexy, scantily clad women. The problem is that cigarette advertising is just so oppressive to women. It's just so sexually exploitative that I can't get behind smoking cigarettes. And you should say to me, well, wait a minute. If I can show you a brand of cigarettes that's 100% produced and marketed by feminist lesbians, would you smoke them? And if we had the whole marketing industry, the whole cigarette industry taken over by feminist lesbians who agree with you ideologically and who would never have a woman in a bikini advertising cigarettes that way for these kinds of political, then you wouldn't have any problem with becoming a nicotine addict yourself? Even if cigarette advertising is sexist or is racist or is in some 21st century sense of the term oppressive, even if the history of the tobacco industry is uniquely and powerfully linked to colonialism and slavery, even if all that's true, this discussion has to begin and end with me having the honesty to say that is irrelevant to my decision to refuse to smoke cigarettes, and it's actually irrelevant to the political discussion about what our policy on nicotine and tobacco should be. In the same way, no matter how racist, no matter how sexist the production of meat may be or the marketing of meat may be, the reality is if you show me a piece of pork that was produced by indigenous people in Papua New Guinea who have never had any contact with European colonialism, who are not in any way white supremacists, and let's say for the sake of argument, they're not sexist either, even if this comes out of the supposed utopia of Papua New Guinea, I won't eat it. And I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to lie to myself about the reasons why. In politics, you don't get to choose whether you are going to win or whether you are going to lose. You get to choose the rules that you are going to follow when you play the game. I'm vegan, but I am not going to be part of a movement that's built on a lie.